This is 8 Minutes, a podcast helping you understand the energy and climate challenge in just a few minutes. I'm your host, Paul Schuster. It's rare to find anything that both sides of the political aisle can agree upon these days, even rarer when that involves clean electricity. But in July, both parties came together and overwhelmingly supported the Nuclear Advance Act, a piece of legislation that the industry is touting as an important tool to help recharge the nuclear power industry in the U.S. Let's dissect what this legislation does and does not do, and why it bucked the trend to assemble such bipartisan support. 8 minutes. It's how long it takes the Suns race it, or how long the football offseason lasted this year. Teasing. I enjoyed every minute that my Michigan Wolverines were national champions. Let's get it on. Believe it or not, the United States boasts the world's largest fleet of nuclear power reactors. According to Ember's 2024 Statistical Review of World Energy, the U.S. generates about 775 terawatt hours of nuclear electricity each year, while second place China generates about 435 terawatt hours. But most of that nuclear power is old. We've built a grand total of 2 reactors in the past 30 years, and those projects came at huge cost overruns and delays. Billions and billions of dollars of added expense. Nuclear, though, should hold a role in the clean energy transition. It generates zero emissions, is base-loaded. We could solve a lot of problems if we could figure out how to build a new fleet of nuclear reactors and figure out where to store the waste. But that's a topic for another episode. This episode is about how Congress came together across the blue and red divide and united on the need to pass some interesting nuclear reforms to help re-jumpstart this industry. The Accelerating Deployment of Versatile Advanced Nuclear for Clean Energy, ADVANCE Act, was signed into law on July 9th by President Biden. It boasted a vote of 88-2 in the Senate after sailing through the House at 393-14. Support for nuclear cuts across the aisle, and the ADVANCE Act has been praised as a workable compromise. The Act tackles a few things at once. For one, it aims to reduce the cost of regulatory review. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is tasked with reviewing and licensing new reactors, a task that typically takes about 100,000 hours of build time. The ADVANCE Act looks to streamline that effort while also reducing the rate that the NRC can charge applicants, down from $317 an hour to about $160 per hour. That translates to tens of millions of dollars in savings. And then the Act made no bones about supporting so-called advanced reactor technologies. The current nuclear fleet uses something called light water reactors. In this technology, fuel rods are immersed in normal, everyday water in order to both cool the rods as well as to moderate the fission reaction. Advanced reactors, such as those favored by the new legislation, look to build on this technology with different coolants, enhanced fuel utilization, increased thermal efficiency, and increased safety features. Keep in mind that we've constructed all of 2 traditional light water reactors at Vogtle Unit 3 and Unit 4 in the past 30 years. So these advanced designs are basically going to be first-of-a-kind units. Not to say that that's bad, but the ADVANCE Act definitely puts a priority on these newer technologies, which is going to bring with it new risks too. The Act incentivizes the development of some of this new technology by setting out monetary prizes for entities who reach certain milestones first. Milestones such as the first licensed advanced reactor or the first such to use spent fuel or depleted uranium. There's an incentive on producing process heat for industrial applications, as well as a couple more. I think that they're trying to tap into excitement around things like the X Prize or the Sunshot or Earthshot programs. But really, the incentives aren't as freewheeling as those programs are. For one thing, TerraPower, a Bill Gates-backed advanced reactor company, has already submitted an application back in March. And well, if all things go right, they're the ones likely to win back about $12 million in prize incentives. Those advanced technologies, by the way, don't need to be huge behemoth power reactors either. The Act specifically mentions support for small modular reactors as well as micro-reactors. I've mentioned SMRs on a previous podcast, but these new technologies are trying to overcome that huge cost challenge that entangled the 2 Vogtle units. Namely, a nuclear renaissance is not going to happen at 3-time cost overruns and $30+ billion of construction costs. What SMRs try to do is A, go smaller, and B, set these things up so that much of the work can be done at a facility and then only final assembly is really needed at the place of installation. Theoretically, at least, that could save a ton of money and drive us down the learning curve even faster. Microreactors are a bit different in that these are small enough units that the intent isn't to power full cities, but more to power smaller microgrids. The units could fit on the back of a flatbed truck, for instance, and drive to an area where clean electricity is needed for reliability or hazard response. One of the big entities looking at deploying these types of systems is, not surprisingly, our military, as the flexibility of mobile power answers a lot of supply chain issues and resiliency in different arenas. As with any bill, not everyone was pleased with the final design. Some nuclear advocates lament that the NRC has authority to require nuclear facilities to meet safety and emissions burdens that are much more strenuous than that of other infrastructure projects. And environmentalists point out that the Act does nothing to answer the long gestating question about what to do with spent fuel over time. And entities such as the Union of Concerned Scientists raise good points on whether the NRC reforms could somehow weaken safety and security oversight for new projects. And other parties have raised concerns as to whether focusing solely on new advanced technologies risks more harm than good, especially if we lose the valuable learnings, however painfully gained they may have been, from the recent completion of Vogtle 3 and 4. If we're moving away from tried and true light water reactors, what don't we know about what may be next? Nuclear could play a big role in the clean energy transition. And it's a technology that has obviously gained advocates on both sides of the aisle. Conservatives love the baseloaded power and ability to support heavy industries such as steel, while progressives are enamored by the zero emissions nature of the power. But nuclear is very much still a risky technology, not risky from a safety perspective necessarily, but from an economic and financial risk viewpoint. While the ADVANCE Act aims to incentivize research and construction and to help the nuclear industry make its own pivot towards advanced technologies, there really are no guarantees that this is going to work. But any technology that has this much bipartisan support should at least get a shot at it, though. I'm Paul Schuster, and this has been your 8 Minutes.